Hi, I'm Felicity, a registered nurse, cosmetic injector, and founder of the Fit Injector Clinic. Welcome to my channel and video podcast streaming on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Today is episode 15, and I have Etta joining me today, a registered nurse, cosmetic injector, new mum, and founder of the Luxe Nurse in Ramsgate Beach. That's a lot.
Yes. Tell me
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
So nice to be here and actually see your clinic.
I know, and I want to come and see your clinic next, your new clinic. I'd love to. So, Etta, we met quite a while back, a couple of years ago, at a cosmetic nurses event. I think it was a Fresh Clinics dinner. And then we've stayed in touch via Instagram since then. So I feel like I do know you quite a lot, quite well. And I've absolutely loved following your journey recently, expanding into your brand new cosmetic clinic and becoming a mum in the process to your gorgeous little man. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long journey, but we're finally here.
I know, right? And I feel like because we've had, I guess we can really relate to each other because we both became new mums. And then while we've got these new little ones, we're like, let's have a bigger clinic,
We're so silly. I don't know why we sign ourselves up for these.
I know.
things.
So smart or crazy. I think the verdict's still out on that one. Because people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, I actually don't know. You just kind of take each day as it comes, don't you? Yeah, you just make it work. Yeah. So I asked you onto the podcast after you posted a story recently of unfortunately having the most awful experience that you've ever had in your career to date with a patient on that day that you posted it. And it hit me to my core because unfortunately since opening this clinic, I've experienced some challenging situations that I hadn't before I opened this shopfront style clinic. And I reached out to you like, yes, I hear you, girl. And in a way, a relief that it wasn't just me having these experiences since expanding. And it turns out that like you didn't have that prior to then either. So I know that today what we're going to talk about will resonate with so many other clinic owners out there on this topic. So we're going to chat firstly around your background in nursing, how you became an injector, expanding your cosmetic clinic, and the main reason we decided to do this podcast. And let's call it the not so aesthetic side to being a cosmetic clinic owner. I was like, I didn't know what to call it. So not so aesthetic.
Yeah.
So Etta, tell us about your background as a registered nurse.
So if we start from the beginning, I would say I actually fell into nursing.
Really?
I was graduating from year 12. I kind of decided that I was going to go and do a Bachelor of Oral Health and become a dental hygienist.
Okay.
At the time, it was very hard to get into. I think Sydney University was the only university in New South Wales that was offering that course. It was about 30 students and there was like a multiple mini interview process to get into that. And unfortunately, I was unsuccessful at the very last stage. So we were going around campus with my partner and he was like, how about nursing? And I was like, nursing? Never thought about that. I was like, maybe midwifery, but I don't know about nursing.
Yeah.
And just it so happened that fate took over and I got an offer at the University of Notre Dame, which happens to be one of the best universities for nursing in particular. Studied 3 years and then decided that I wanted to go into the operating theatres as my new graduate program. I was very lucky that I got that as well. And from that point on, I went into pediatrics, did a bit of anesthetics and recovery, and I loved it. I was doing a lot of exciting emergency cases. I met a lot of, families, and I've got great stories from that part of my career. But I knew at that point I had to start thinking about my future because I was doing a lot of on-calls, weekends, night duty, and I basically had no work-life balance. And I also felt that I lacked a bit of a creative outlet. So I remember in university at the very first lecture we sat in, I think it was anatomy and physiology. The lecturer, Angela Owens, I still remember to this day. She told everyone to sit down and scan across the room. And she said, have a look at who you're sitting next to. 1/3 of the nursing students are going to drop out in the first placement.
Wow.
The second third is here purely to do cosmetic nursing. Yeah.
Wow.
This was back in 2013.
Wow.
So I guess there was a bit of a boom happening. Laser clinics was, you know, new to the game. And
interesting, because in my head it's only really been in the last few years that people have had that kind of like, I only want to do nursing to be an injector. Yeah. That's wow. So 2013 that was.
2013. So
and so then that stuck with you.
That stuck with me. And I was probably in my 3rd year as an RN. And I was like, I'm missing this creative outlet. What could I do? So cosmetic nursing was the avenue that I decided to take. And at the time, it wasn't actually quite easy to get into. You had to know someone or you had to find a plastic surgeon that was willing to take you on. Yeah. I don't think fresh clinics existed then.
No, they started in 2018.
Yeah, so this would have been 2016, 2017. Yeah. I was, you know, having these thoughts. So I decided to invest in my future. I went and did a postgraduate diploma in cosmetic nursing and dermal therapy. Yeah. And it was an expensive course. Everyone told me, you know, you're silly. Why are you doing this? Yeah.
Especially when you've already done your bachelor.
Yeah. But I believed in my vision and I didn't want to go down the stock standard pathway that everyone else was doing.
Yeah, like a 2-day course and off you go.
Yeah. So I went and did that. It was a 12-month course. I really loved it. I'm glad I actually did it now because as a nurse that does skin treatments, I actually learned a lot about lasers, a lot about dermatology. Absolutely. Things like that.
And the way our industry is moving where patients are more and more, they're wanting skin treatments. It's fantastic that you've got that background because then you'll be that sort of like step ahead with what people want.
Yeah. So that was 12 months. Yeah. Graduated. Then I was like, okay, ready to find a job. It was still proving difficult. I didn't hear about fresh clinics at this time. So I started going on Seek and applying for clinics. And I had an interview with a large franchise. Yeah. And I went into this interview and immediately I knew that my values weren't going to align with theirs. Yeah. I remember my partner had driven me to this interview and I got back in the car and I started crying. Aww. Because I just felt like, you know, this wasn't for me. Yeah. And he said, Edda, get it together. He's like, if this is going to be your way in, then this is just something that you need to do. Yeah. So I signed that contract.
You did, yeah.
Signed my soul away.
Big, scary contract. We've all seen one. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my way in. Yeah. And I guess I'm grateful that I did that now, but
at the time, scary decision. But now you're like, scary. Yes, it was the right thing.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of the Luxe Nurse.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And here we are.
So
So up until recently you had a one-room clinic. Is that you were renting within an existing space? Is that right?
Yeah.
And then this year you've expanded to how many treatment rooms have you got?
It's still just the one.
Just one.
Yeah,
but it's
a larger space with a shop front.
And a big waiting area. And it's absolutely beautiful from what I've seen on Instagram.
And lots of foot traffic, which is great.
Yeah, which is amazing for business, isn't it? Yeah, that's so good. So, shall we? All right, Edda, let's get into the juicy stuff. So when we were planning this, you came to me with some great examples to share. I'm going to let you sort of take that away and then I'm going to throw in some funny examples. Okay. I won't relive too much of the stuff. I feel like I've done a lot of processing past it and touch wood, things have been really great in the last few months. So let's start with your most recent encounter, which prompted you to make that Instagram story and then why you're sitting here today.
Okay, so I had this client. She was a new client. She booked very last minute. I think it was the night before, booked online, and she was running late to her appointment. So when she did eventually come in, she was huffing and puffing, and I could tell that she, you know, was struggling to get here on time. So I introduced myself and I said, look, take a seat. Let me get you some water, you know, get your things together, and then we can get started with the consultation. And I took her into the treatment room, and before I could begin, she basically took over the whole consultation. So her first little feedback was that she didn't understand why a lot of clinics now take booking deposits or consultation fees.
Oh, that's an interesting thing to start with.
Yeah. So she wanted to feedback that she found my website a little bit difficult because rather than having the option to use Apple Pay, that she had to physically take out her card, you know, put the digits in and press submit. And, you know, I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, great feedback. If I can make the process easier, why not?
Yeah, I'll go away and think about that.
Yeah. I was like, thank you. I'm going to take that on board and hopefully I can implement that.
Yeah.
Before I can start the consultation, then she starts talking about this clinic in Double Bay that she's been visiting for years and how she's had a bad experience. And at the last appointment, she had an argument with the clinic manager and that she didn't want to go back to that clinic. Yeah. And, you know, in our minds, that's already a red flag.
It is.
But you know what? I thought, sometimes people want to find somewhere new to go to.
So, and sometimes they have genuinely had a bad experience, but other times they haven't.
Yeah.
And then you start to think, well, am I going to be the next clinic that they're talking about to the next injector, even if you've gone above and beyond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I let her have her little rant, get it out of her system. And then, you know, we jumped into the consultation. So she was there primarily for an anti-wrinkle treatment. So I asked her all the stock standard questions. You know, how long was your last treatment? What areas do you like to get done? Do you see a good result? So on. Yeah. She basically still took over the consultation and I couldn't even explain myself. I couldn't, you know, give her the dose. She basically started telling me, you know, I want this much in my forehead, this many injection points, and then this is the dose. And the treatment plan that she was giving me wasn't adding up. So she wanted 3 areas using a dose that was extremely low, something that we would typically use 1 to 2 areas. Yeah. She was wanting little to no movement. Yeah. And I was trying to explain to her why I didn't think that was a good treatment plan for her, and that I would think after 2 weeks that she would be calling me to tell me that it didn't work, because I've seen that time and time again.
And then it's on you, right? Even if you've explained it 100 times. Yeah.
I know better now that, you know, underdosing is not the way.
No.
And it's creating an issue in our industry. Mm-hmm. So I generally try to re-educate clients because, you know, they just might have seen the wrong injector before who wasn't experienced.
Well, like between products, I think people don't realize that there's 4 products available of anti-wrinkle, and the dosing varies between them, between one compared to the other 3 in particular. And some people come in with a dose and they're saying that it's one particular product. I'm like, that dose sounds like it would actually be the other product, but they're very firm that it's the other one. And you're thinking, but if I inject that dose, like it's really not going to do anything because it's such a small amount. Yeah. And you're trying to have that education. Yeah.
Yes, but she didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And we just kept going around in a circle.
And just not getting anywhere.
And she was just very passive aggressive. Yeah. And I was actually alone in the clinic. So I didn't feel confident to say, hey, maybe I'm not the injector for you.
Which is such a hard conversation to have.
In hindsight, I probably should have said that. But just based on her energy and how she was, you know, responding to my advice or my recommendation, I just didn't think it was an appropriate way to go. Yeah. And that it would have tipped things over into maybe a more of an aggressive tone. Yeah. But yeah, we kept going back and forth, and she was just very argumentative. She was saying, look, if you don't want to treat me, I will go back to my last clinic or I'll go elsewhere. It's kind of like this reverse psychology. Yeah. I think price was a factor for her. Yeah. And when that becomes a factor for clients, look, I completely understand. Yeah. Everyone has a budget. So I always recommend, look, rather than decreasing the dose and not getting the result that you want, why don't we treat one area correctly?
Yeah. And then see,
she didn't want that either. Okay. So I had given her options. Yeah. And she didn't want to hear it. She just wanted me to do what she wanted to do. And it came to a point where she was in my face and I just felt a little bit threatened. Yeah, a bit intimidating. And I was just trying to tell her, look, if you had gone to your GP asking for antibiotics, are you going to tell them, look, I want this much of amoxicillin.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm only going to take it for 3 days. And,
And I think that kind of really.
And I think that's where there is this kind of blurred line in the cosmetic industry that it's more beauty and that, you know, people can be a little bit more sort of like, you know, I guess telling us what they want. And I'm all for, you know, I love it when a client comes in, they know what product they're having and how they like it. And sometimes they do know their dosing. And if it's right, you're like, this is really helpful.
Makes our job easier.
Yeah. And now with the new ARPA regulations where they get that email, like that is so helpful, right? But there is then that line where it's like, actually, you maybe don't have this right, and then how to kind of mitigate that from it then becoming, you know, you inject them, but then it's all wrong, and then you're the next injector that they're talking about. Or do you tell them, okay, well, we're going to stop this here, but like you said, you know, some people obviously can then get quite, you know, angry about that. But at the end of the day, we are medical professionals and we have to get a prescription for these products, and we understand correct dosing after years and years of treating faces. And so I guess there needs to be, you know, let's normalize the fact that, you know, we do know what's best for your face.
Yeah. I know.
So how did you wrap up this interaction?
So basically she ended up walking out of the clinic, which I was glad that she did that because I didn't want to be the one to escort out.
Yeah.
It wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And I just think, what was the point of me treating her, because I didn't think she was going to come back.
Yeah. Totally.
I just had that vibe from her.
You know what? Because you didn't treat her. You did the best thing instead of, you know, like we've touched on then, you know, she goes to the next clinic and you're a terrible injector and, you know, in her, you know, in her mind, which you absolutely didn't. You were being patient. You were trying to educate. So.
I spent 20 minutes with her, but I did receive a lovely email from her an hour later. Basically she was asking for a refund of her deposit or consultation fee because I'd refused to treat her.
But and you know, there's so many reasons we refuse. You know, if she's coming on antibiotics or she was pregnant or, you know, there's so many reasons why we refuse people. And I think there is this really challenging part where we just refuse because it's, you know, when we're not going to make them happy or, you know, like that, like they're wanting a dose that's not appropriate or we can't meet their budgets and things like that. It's challenging, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because there are clinics out there that are just happy to do what people say just to get them through the door.
Yeah, and so it makes it hard for the people that are really trying to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, you know, when we say no to a treatment, we're saying no to putting food on the table for our young families, you know. So it really shows when we say no to someone, and I do get, you know, majority of my patients are lovely. I want to put that out there. But I do get that feedback where people will go, I really appreciate you saying no because, you know, the last 3 clinics wanted to put all this stuff in my face and they left feeling like really intimidated by that. And the fact that I go, no, like you said, let's just start with one area or let's just start with 1 ml of product or, you know, when it comes to dermal filler, and majority of people actually really appreciate that you can be honest because they're like, well, this is your business and you're able to go nurse first, you know, medical professional first and actually say no.
And that's when you'll find clients that will follow you for years.
Exactly. And that's where you get these beautiful long-term followers that, you know, you just know so much about them. They know about you and your family and it just becomes this,
I'm not interested in treating someone just for that one time. Yeah, I want a loyal clientele base.
Exactly.
Nice to be around.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think, it really makes you a lot more aware of these situations. And I think, you know, if unfortunately it does happen again to you, you'll probably be within that first 5 minutes, you'll be like, this is not happening. Yeah. I'm not the injector for you. Yeah, totally. I want to add in a funny one here, unless there's anything else you want to say about that.
Go ahead.
A funny one here that we had recently, I did post it on Instagram. We had a walk-in a couple of weeks ago who just came in off the street asking about, you know, the treatments we did, asking for pricing for lip filler and a lip flip. And then they went, they didn't book, but they took a card and Lucy told them how to book and all of that, and everything seemed quite normal. And then they went to leave and then they turned around and asked to use the bathroom. And that's when I just got that, you know, that funny gut feeling. And And they used the bathroom and then they left. And then something made me go, I was like, I need to go and check the bathroom. Mm-hmm. They stole I don't know how to pronounce it, Aesop, whatever that brand is, those post-poo drops that were sitting on the back of the toilet. I was like, of all things to steal from me. And like we have a full security system. So I'm like, we have like a full shot of this person. And I just thought, oh my gosh.
Some people are just strange.
And Lucy and I just laughed about it. But I was like, if you're prepared to steal like poo drops off the back of the toilet, are you also prepared to steal skincare or let me inject your face and then walk out without paying, or, you know, and it made me feel really uncomfortable.
It's very scary, isn't it?
Whether it's a tiny thing or a large expensive thing, I'm like, this person just stole from my business, and they came in, asking all these lovely questions. So we do know what this person looks like. So if they ever book in again, I will be politely asking them to leave.
Can you imagine having that conversation?
But I'd be like, you're the person who stopped from the awkward, right?
Very awkward.
Weird. Very weird. But that's something that certainly wouldn't have happened in my old clinic, because I was like way up in a commercial building. And I feel like it acted as like this kind of filtration system. But yeah.
And I think that's just now what we see as a shop front.
Because it certainly opens you up to a larger portion of the population, right? So you don't have, I guess, like you probably had in your previous clinic, and so did I, like I said, this kind of filtration system that really the only people that were booking in, they've either followed you on Instagram for a really long time or they've been referred to you. That, I never got a walk in my old clinic because I was like 3 stories up in a building. So in those first few months, it was like a little bit eye-opening to these, weird encounters that we were having straight off the street.
But you'll always laugh about that now.
You do, especially that one. I'm like, that one will go down in history here. And then the other points we put here, which I'm sure every cosmetic clinic owner experiences, is, like you had that encounter, passive aggressive, people shopping around trying to haggle you on price and things like that. And unfortunately, I think that is driven, like you touched on, from, chain clinics advertising, $99 foreheads and things like that. But I guess you just have to really set that boundary of, we are private clinics, we are a boutique experience. And obviously, you put in the notes here, like expecting specials regularly. I'm not sure if you've read those ARPA regulation proposed changes that came out last week, but really cutting down heavily on things like specials, discounts, influencers and things like that, because obviously consumers are seeing that everywhere. And at the end of the day, like we're providing a medical treatment with a prescription medication. There shouldn't be specials on that. There shouldn't be discounts.
I agree, actually, with the way that the industry is going. It's filtering all the, negative.
And it's only going to put these, these private boutique clinics where you're getting this, fantastic experience. It's only going to push those. And where people start to go, well, maybe if it's too cheap, that's actually a red flag, And I'm all for, a few times a year we might run a promotion on one of our skin treatments or something like that. But certainly in the last couple of years, I've really put my foot down. Like there's no discounts on injectables. There's no specials, nothing like that.
And I think consumers forget that we are a family-owned business. And we have put so much on the line to have a beautiful boutique clinic and provide these amazing treatments and high-end services.
Exactly.
You pay for what you get. And behind the scenes, there are a lot of things that we have to pay for, like your professional indemnity insurance, all our consumables, wages. It doesn't end.
And people, I guess, just think there's the product cost, which is a lot more than what people might think, and it's constantly going up. And then there's the price that we charge our patients. But like you said, there's all those factors in between that dwindles down where, we're only getting a tiny little cut of that. We're not running off to Westfield with hundreds of dollars after every patient. That's going out to all of those things that you just mentioned.
We're performing high risk treatment. So it doesn't end when that client walks out the door. There's a lot of aftercare. And, if a complication is to happen, that has to be factored in as well. So I try and re-educate everyone now. The price is high for this reason.
Yes, exactly.
And
so I'm kind of like those parts of the regulation changes, proposed changes, I'm like, yes, bring it on. And obviously we've all had experiences with clients who are, they've had, in our personal opinion, professional opinion, too much treatment. And having those difficult conversations around, I guess, what we deem as appropriate treatments as well. And I guess that kind of, us going, what is our ideal client base and what isn't. And I think, trying to treat a patient who's already overfilled, we're probably not going to meet their expectations ever.
Yeah. And I am a big believer in that we select our clients rather than our clients select 100%. us. 100%. So if they don't align with my ethical values, I think there's another injector out there for them. So I'm more than happy to turn people away.
Absolutely.
And I've done this time and time again. And I know that, there is a dollar figure that I'm saying no to.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're our portfolio. So if they don't look great.
And they're going around going, I went to see Ed at the Luxe Nurse. And then their friends are going,
I'm not going to be going
I'm
there.
Not going, exactly. Yeah.
So I've always been mindful of that. And I know there are injectors that I've spoken to and they're like, why did you say no? They're just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy for them to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Because what I love is when I get that new patient on the bed and I always say, how did you find me? Oh, I was referred by such and such. Her face looks incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. And her face looks natural. And they go, I didn't even know she was getting treatment. And she's been coming here for years.
Yeah.
And that is like why I'm like, that is what I do. And that's why I'm like, I'm a very less is more injector. It's funny. Some of my patients after a few years, they're like, I've worked you out.
Yeah.
I really have to push you to inject you. I'm like, yeah, you do. Because I'm like, I want that natural. I've got in my clinic lit up, it says enhance your natural beauty. So, I don't want to add to that person who, people are going to go, like, where did they go?
And I've been actually labeled by a previous employer as a conservative injector, which some people might not be happy about that label. I'm more than happy to take that
I'm like, I'll wear that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be that injector.
Totally.
And there are clients that I see that I, have that honest conversation. Look, I'm more than happy to do your anti-wrinkle, but I don't think dermal filler is required for the treatment.
I don't think you need that.
Or I'll suggest to them a laser treatment.
Absolutely.
Or a surgical option if I think they are heading down that pathway.
Absolutely. And I really like that where you said we also pick our clients, and I think too if you really kind of almost like portray who you are, like really kind of put it, have that like energy. The clients that aren't the right fit for both of us, they'll kind of work that out as well. And I've had that on the bed where they're kind of like, actually, I will just do my tox, because I can see them going, she's not the injector to do my filler or, whatever it is, because they've also worked out she's not going to give me what I want, because they might not want what I'm saying is like a natural look.
And I've also had clients come to me recently who've gone to other injectors, and I always ask them, how did you find me? Was it a referral or Instagram? And they are usually from Instagram or referral, but I asked them, what happened to your last clinic? And they say, it was great, but the injector just, how they look sorry. I've lost it.
So good.
They basically come to me because their injector has gone too far with the injectables themselves.
Yes.
And
that's a huge one. I heard, I can't remember if it was a conference or on a podcast or something, but where other injectors were talking about where injectors become victims of the industry. And they lose sight of like.
Is that on the IA podcast?
I think so. Shout out to those guys. That's right. But it's true, right? And they, where maybe at the end of every week they're like, there's, use up the extra tox. Here's some filler. And then they're almost losing sight. And then you get that where the patients are like, and it's kind of like, you're not going to go to a hairdresser who has bad hair, right?
Yeah.
So,
so I'm always mindful of that.
Yeah. And like looking at you, like you look so natural. You've just got beautiful glowing skin. And of course your patients would feel so comfortable with having you do their treatments.
Yeah. And they always ask me, what treatments do you have? Do you get that?
I always get the skin like this, and they go, oh, like, have you had filler? And I'm like, I'm like everywhere. But they're like, oh wow, you know, it looks natural. And the thing they always comment on is my skin. Yeah. And then that's the best, like, because I'm like, yes, well, we have like 4 other rooms for skin treatments. And really, I think in the last couple of years, it's like really putting skin first. And then people are really putting 2 and 2 together. Like if I'm doing skin treatments, my anti-wrinkle actually looks better. My fillers look better. And they realize that they don't need as much of those products to, you know, get the results that they want. So I'm going to jump 1 point ahead here while we're on, you know, talking about what we find out from other clinics without, you know, saying anything negative. But there was one experience that I had a new patient on the bed told me about just recently actually. Was that when they went there, like no one had to introduce like what their qualification was. And usually obviously people come in and, you know, because we've got it out there that we're registered nurse and all of that. But I always to a new patient introduce myself like I'm Felicity, I'm a registered nurse, just so they know like, you know, who they're seeing. But no one had actually announced like what their qualification was. You know, they weren't wearing, you know, badges like you've got it on your scrubs, I've got a badge, you know. But after the experience with me, they actually told me this at the end in the waiting room after going through, you know, where I talk about obviously all the risks and the treatment and we do the scripting and all of that they were like, actually, after the experience with you, I feel the need to tell you this. They're like, I don't think the last person injecting me was a nurse. And I'm like, because apparently what happened is there was a doctor called on FaceTime for the script. But then after that was done, the face was cleaned and they drew up the dots. And then the registered nurse was called on FaceTime to check the dots.
That's a very
for the placement
process.
And I was like,
why would they do that?
So then they did their research because I was like, oh, that didn't feel right. They did their research. They found us. Then they had the treatment with me and then they were like, okay, I feel the need to just like, blah. And they're like, I'm not sure what was going on there.
Yeah. Red flag.
Red flag. Because they were like, that was completely different to the experience.
Oh my goodness.
And then even since I wrote this, I've also had just recently too, like, you know, someone who was like, after I did the scripting and everything, they were like, how often do you have to do that? And I said, you know, every 6 months in New South Wales and, you know, less than that if we're changing the dose or product or whatever. And they're like, I can't remember the last time someone did a script and they'd been going to the same clinic for years.
I'm still actually quite shocked how people don't understand the scripting process who've been having it for years.
Yeah, and people go, what's that? Why do we have to do this? And they're asking, and I'm like, and then you have to sort of do your full...
I feel like I'm explaining to them for the first time.
Yeah, and I feel like I sometimes have to go, oh, well, in Australia, like you have to be, you know, and do the whole thing. And they're sort of like looking blankly and you can tell they're like, where have I been going?
Yeah.
And I just kind of think, like I always just thought we were quite strict here, like compared to, you know, I follow pages in, you know, especially the UK, it's like the Wild West there, you know, anyone can inject, follow that consultant clinic who just like calls out non-medical professionals. And so I'm just like, how are people, especially here, like how are people, I guess, doing this? Because what's going to happen, especially like with that recent encounter where they're going, I can't remember the last time someone did a script for me. The more people that are going to have that experience, that clinic will, you know, will get audited because a patient's going to stand up and go, hey, I don't think what's going on here is the right thing. So it's like, how long do these injectors, non-injectors think that they can do that for?
And I'm always mindful of the fact that if a complication was to occur, you're going to need that doctor to fall back on.
Who's going to support you? Yeah.
And, you know, from my hospital nursing days, I was always told, like, think about if something was to go wrong in, you know, a court case. Yeah. You need something to stand on. So it's always been ingrained in my mind. If something was to happen, have you done the right steps?
Yeah, exactly. And what, like losing everything, your registration, your clinic, everything over what, not scripting someone. Like that's just, especially if a complication happens.
You know, 1 minute process.
Yeah, it's so quick now with the apps and everything. Yeah. Crazy.
I don't understand how people get away with this.
No, nor do I. The next point we had was strange DMs we've received asking for freebies. We know every injector's had these. And one I do get quite regularly is influencers. Yeah. But, you know, with the regulations with ARPA and TGA that have happened over the last couple of years, we actually can't do that. Like, which is great. Like, not that I have ever done that before. I've never had, you know, an influencer in. But the fact that they, you know, they do ask, you know, for a shout out, you know, can I have my lips done for a shout out? Yeah. Like, no, like that costs us. You know?
I've had an interesting one actually a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah.
It was an Instagram DM, and basically this young girl reached out to me saying that she was studying to become an actor.
Yeah.
And she couldn't afford to have treatment. So she was hoping to get, a complimentary service for a shout out.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, okay, come on in.
Sure.
And but I often just don't respond anymore.
No. Often I just, especially if they come through as like a DM request, I just delete them.
Yeah.
I don't even need to enter into that conversation because it's a flat out no, right?
And people think, are we going to pay out of our own pocket?
Exactly. Like that will cost me to have you in. Wild. Next point that you had was awkward encounters with other injectors and employers in the industry, which you've read.
I've had many.
You've had many. We've all had a lot, haven't we?
Yeah,
it can be a funny little industry.
Where should I start? Actually, I mentioned before in university that, there were a third of the students that were there for cosmetic injectables. Now that I'm a cosmetic injector, there's actually a few injectors out there that were, within the same grade as me. One of them was actually a close friend.
Yeah.
We would attend lectures together or parties and things like that. And when we finished university, we kind of lost touch, as you do.
Yeah.
And I ran into her one day. She was working for a franchise. I was there to get a laser treatment done. And while I bumped into her, I was like, hey, how are you? It's great to see you. What are you doing these days? She was like, oh, I'm actually an injector. I was like, amazing. I'm actually, considering that pathway myself. I'd love to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And we left it there. And I think it might have been months down the track. I did that. I'd sent her a DM. Hey, do you have any tips for me?
Yeah.
I wasn't asking anything big of her.
Yeah.
I just, wanted a little bit of support in the right direction.
Friend to friend, yeah.
She kind of ghosted me.
Oh.
I didn't even receive a DM.
Oh, that's a bit rude.
And now that I attend industry events, I've run into her.
Yeah.
And not only that she doesn't say hello, she acts like she doesn't know me at all. And I just find that so interesting. Why would you
There's this really sort of like competitive within competitive part of the industry where I feel like every injector sort of experienced that where other injectors I've experienced too ghost you, stop talking to you, whatever, pretend they don't. And I'm like, there's more consumers than there are injectors.
There's room for everyone.
There is enough business, and like we've just gone on and on about today, like everyone is so different as well in what they do. We don't appeal to everyone, and I'm like, let's I'm all about having injectors as friends, getting them on the podcast, going to events, being friends. Like I feel like there's so much we can learn from each other, but like I don't feel like I'm in competition with them because we're all so different and we're just doing our own thing. So I'm like, there's no need to behave like that at all.
And since then, I've actually also found out she's blocked me on social media.
That's a bit petty.
There's another friend that was within this group of university friends who's also an injector now, and she's done the same thing too. So
there's no need.
She obviously feels intimidated, and I don't understand why.
Yeah. And you know what? Like that's obviously someone that you don't need to be friends with. And it's just, I guess, advice to new injectors coming into the industry is like you don't need to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the more we can come together and learn from it, like I love, seeing you and a lot of the other girls, like it was so nice how like I saw those photos on your Instagram, a group of you like caught up, you're all in the same area, essentially you're all competition.
Yeah.
But you go and hang out and you have Christmas parties. Like I love when we get to go to conferences and catch up and and
it's a great support network.
It is.
We get those days that, we need a friend to
and we're
lean
always on our own, right?
Exactly. And it's like having your own team.
Yeah.
But you're not working together.
Exactly.
The same
and you can
clinic.
bounce things off each other.
Yeah.
And,
so
borrow things from each other
honestly,
when you run out.
When people want to ghost you, they're the ones that are missing out.
Exactly. They are. Yeah.
It's a very lonely place to be if you're going to be like that.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Employers.
Yes, that's the next one.
So like I mentioned earlier, I started off working for a large franchise.
Yeah.
I won't mention the name just for because of defamation issues. But working for a large franchise, it's actually quite stock standard to sign a training agreement, which is usually a large sum.
Yeah.
And that kind of prevents injectors from leaving, 6 or 12 months down the track, opening up their own shop.
And obviously they need to get their return on investment as well. Like we get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We completely understand that. So because I had come in already with a postgraduate diploma, I actually negotiated my contract down to half of that sum.
Okay.
And I started working for this company, and I think I only received about 2 days of training. So I'm not sure how that equates to the whole amount.
Yeah.
It was just 1 day at their head office doing an introduction to the company. I think I got to treat one cheek filler, one lip filler, and then a full face of tox with the rep at the time.
Yeah.
And then off I went on my merry way. Little did I know, that wasn't enough. I felt quite unsupported. There were days where, I felt I was outside of my comfort zone. And when I did reach out, I often wouldn't get the right answer, or the manager that I was actually responding to wasn't a cosmetic nurse.
Yeah. So which makes it hard. Yeah.
Yeah, which I found it quite interesting. If you're looking after, a state of nurses, I think you should be a nurse yourself.
Yeah.
So I kind of stayed with that company for a few months, doing these introductory treatments for clients, and often I said no as well if I felt outside of my comfort zone, because I was always wary of my own registration. But I knew that this wasn't going to be a long-term role for me, and opportunity came knocking my way. It was actually in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I was still employed at Sydney Children's Hospital, working there part-time. The other days I was injecting, and basically the opportunity to become a nurse unit manager presented itself, and it was for a pediatric COVID testing clinic. And this is during, I think, the first wave of the COVID pandemic, so it was all quite new. Everything had to be set up.
And you weren't injecting at this time, like we'd been stood down. Right, because clinics were
closed. I had been injecting for 3 months, but there was a second wave coming. It was close to Christmas. So I went to my employer and said, look, this opportunity has presented itself. It's a 3-month contract. I understand, it's poor timing. But I don't think an opportunity like this would present itself again. I was 25 at the time. So to do a nurse unit manager role, it was a big deal. So I basically asked for 3 months, what's it called?
Kind of like leave without pay.
Leave without pay, because I hadn't accrued any at this time. And my employer took it as the biggest insult. She could have said, no, look, it doesn't align with the business at the moment, and I would have completely understood that. But her response was like, basically I was cheating on this company. But
it's not like you said, oh, hey, I'm going to go work at another cosmetic clinic 2 doors down for the next 3 months.
Exactly. So. I was going to go work in a hospital.
And especially during a COVID, pandemic. We didn't really know what was going to happen with clinics, right? So people were sort of reverting back to their hospital roles and increasing those, because we had no idea whether, it was going to be a viable industry.
And hospitals were desperate for nurses. So a lot of nurses were going back to the hospital for that reason.
I even considered it during that time, because I didn't know how we were going to pay the bills.
So this was a 3-month contract. Basically I was told that, I wasn't welcome here anymore if I was going to sign this contract, and I was actually going to be breaking that contract, because it was me who was wanting to leave. But that wasn't the case. I was just going to do a 3-month contract, come back, pick up from where I left off.
And
I knew it was a big ask, but I thought they would be understanding considering,
and so much was changing so quickly. Exactly.
So unfortunately they were not understanding. I went and did this contract, which was the best thing I could have done, because within a few months nurses were still down again.
There you go. Stood down from the cosmetic clinics.
Exactly. And
you made the right call.
I did make the right call, but 6 months later, long and behold, I received an email. It was a legal case from my employer because I was now liable to pay this huge sum of money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually the amount that we agreed for.
Yeah.
It was the original amount that they would ask every nurse to sign.
Yeah.
And look, I responded to this email before getting, professional advice, basically explaining that it wasn't me that wanted to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And you tried to sit down and have a talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I only received 2 days of training, which I organized models to come in for, who paid for the cost of the treatment. So they were in fact not out of pocket.
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand why they were asking for that huge sum of money when in fact they didn't invest in any training in me.
Yeah.
So luckily I was actually still a member of the Nursing and Midwifery Council.
Yep.
And I sought legal support from them. Good. And it's honestly the best thing I ever done.
Yeah.
The person that I spoke to, the representative, told me there was at least 20 nurses who were in the same position boat as me.
Yeah.
And basically they would pressure them and harass them for years.
Yeah.
Basically until they would give in or settle on a smaller sum.
That's so challenging, especially when, the times were so uncertain for everyone. You'd been stood down and then they hadn't met their end of the deal on the training.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got it all sorted?
I was very lucky. The person that was advising just said, look, please do not pay any money. They will keep harassing you, but in a court of law, they don't have a case.
It's not going to stand up.
Yeah. It's not legally standing what you've signed.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. But it was honestly 6 to 12 months of stress.
And it just rattles you. Yeah.
I was pregnant. And
you were pregnant. Yeah. You poor thing.
But that's kind of over and done with now. Thank God. I've closed that chapter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But no, you were right. Like there were a lot of nurses sort of in that boat during that time. They decided to go back to the hospitals and then, you were being told you've, breached your contracts. But we had like actual stand down letters, which, But I'm glad
it's not like I left to go to another clinic.
Exactly. I'm not going to your competitor. Yeah. I'm going to help out during a pandemic. Yeah, totally.
So it was completely, I don't know.
Just unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that's behind you.
Yeah.
So I guess in summary, what I've learned this year, having this larger shopfront clinic compared to when I was in Edgecliff, way up in a commercial building, like I've touched on, is that I never had anyone walk off the street there. And here we get, which I love, almost a walk-in every single day, which is fantastic to, our growing client base. But having a shopfront opens you up to a larger proportion of the population. Touch wood, things have been really good for us in the last couple of months here. But in the beginning, I think we were trying to please everyone that walked in because, like I was saying on the previous podcast, I'd outgrown Edgecliff. I took this sort of calculated risk on this, but this is a clinic we need to grow into.
Yeah.
So suddenly you almost feel like you're back at square one. I'm like, I've got so much work to do. Scary. So it's kind of like you're saying yes to everyone that comes through the door. And then suddenly I'm like, no, these aren't, these aren't all the patients, I haven't been sort of picking these. And in those challenging situations that I did go through, fortunately there weren't that many, but it was enough to make me go like, hang on, I need to reassess. Wise up very quickly, put my big girl pants on, myself and Lucy, just to be really alert to these situations. Yeah. So you're not, 40 minutes into a consult going, this isn't right. You're, before they've even booked an appointment, you've sort of got this energy where they go, actually, I might just book online, and they realize this isn't the clinic for them and they can go down the road to, someone else who's going to say yes. And we're a lot, like Lucy and I are a lot more confident with saying no really quickly to situations that we just don't want to get involved in.
Yeah.
We did buy sage during our really challenging period.
I love it.
We almost set fire to the place. I said to Lucy, I bought it and I said to Lucy, do you know how to use this? She goes, no, but I'll Google it. next minute.
Good old Google.
We literally, and I've got, as you know, when you fit out a clinic, I had to get this ridiculously over the top fire system.
It was so. You set it off.
We almost set the place on fire. We were like running into the car park, and then my husband wasn't here, and I told him at the end, and he was like, "You did what?"
Oh,
so, anyways, we have it. We don't light it anymore, but we have it, and we have it at the desk. And every now and then, we just sort of shake it around and around the doors. And look, I don't know, superstition or whatever, but
I think I'm gonna have to give it a go.
I think you will. Things have been pretty good since we got that. And we keep our front door locked because in any area, there's people that you don't necessarily want walking in your clinic. And at the start, we sort of wanted a system where the door was open, but we quickly worked out that Lucy needed to be our security guard.
Yeah.
And she does a very good job at that. Good old Lucy. She looks so scary. Not at all. But yeah, that's definitely helped. So get some sage.
Oh my God, you're going to have to pass on your sage dealer's number.
Just don't light it. My sage dealer, the local health food store. Just no lighting it. He was like, my husband was like, that's literally like what I use when I go out in the bush to set fire, to the fire pit. I'm like, oh, yeah. In my brand new cosmetic clinic.
Did you see it from TikTok? Were you influenced?
Yeah, I was. Because we saw other clinic owners like, we like to reset the energy when it's not feeling right. I'm like, that's a great idea. Just don't light it. So on to our Instagram questions. So I've just popped a couple in here. So the first one is the biggest tip for an experienced registered nurse as my first year as a cosmetic nurse. What tips would you give to someone?
I would say definitely invest in your education.
Yeah.
Don't rely on someone else to teach you. Yeah. Really get out there. Go to conferences. Yeah. Go to seminars. Stay connected with other injectors. Patreon's a huge wealth of knowledge now. So subscribe to your favorite, injectors out there.
Absolutely.
That would be my biggest tip because there is so much to learn. I'm still learning every day.
We are, aren't we? It's crazy.
And the industry moves at such a fast pace.
Yeah.
There are new products that are coming out. It seems like TGA is approving everything.
And I'm like, I can't keep up. I'm like, can you slow down again?
Yeah, exactly.
And other injectors are like, have you got the blah, blah? And I'm like, the what?
So
it's just learning. And do more than, a 2-day course. And I think, look, there's so many courses out there now, but just do your research because some of them you'll have one model between 6 injectors and you'll do half a lip. Like that's not going to prepare you to then go and do a full lip. You need to make sure you're getting the theory, you're getting the hands-on and you're getting lots of models.
Yeah. And I'm a huge advocate of people, nurses in particular, go and do your postgraduate diploma before you consider cosmetic nursing.
Have that,
You are going to learn so much in that 1 year that as an clinic owner, I could never replicate.
Exactly.
So I always turn people away when they ask me, what do you think? Are you hiring? I don't want to speak to you until you've gone and done your hospital training.
Yeah. And because there's so much, which people forget is like we're doing medical treatments. Things can go wrong. And even just those, communication skills, bedside
manner's a huge one.
Yeah. It's a massive one. And that will, set you apart from that injector that people really, love to come with or that, just sort of robot injector and you get your 3 areas and off you go. So, I think
what's something that you would recommend?
Definitely training and education, really immersing yourself in it, hospital experience. And I think just really, I think through, doing lots of training instead of just kind of like grabbing, I guess through people I've mentored and through people who I have employed in the past is people not realizing that maybe it's not for them. So I think the more training you can do, especially the more hands-on experience, is kind of actually working out, is this for me?
Yeah.
Because it is glamorized. And so people think, oh, that's wonderful. I want to wear high heels and dress up and inject people. But it's, it's definitely not like that majority of the time, especially as a business owner. So just taking that time to really work out, is this for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And also understanding that you might not turn a profit straight away.
Yes.
Especially if you're expanding to a bigger space, you're taking on big leases.
Yeah.
It generally takes 2 years for a new business to turn a profit and start paying your wage.
Exactly.
So and if you could do part-time in the hospital to still support yourself, I would definitely recommend that. I did that for a little while. And, you know, considering that we had a pandemic, it was a huge relief.
You need it,
There's a lot of injectors that you were out of work, you know, that were full-time for a little while.
Exactly. And you're constantly reinvesting in your business. So even if you're making a profit, you're not really paying yourself. You're actually then just reinvesting that back into the business. So it's a long time.
Services,
long time before you pay yourself. Yeah, exactly.
It's not
be
as
prepared.
glamorous.
I
work a lot
that.
more than I did when I was employed full-time as a nurse. You know, imagine.
You swap the 9 to 5 for 24/7. And that's the thing. And your brain never switches off, right? Like even at night, you put your son to bed and you're thinking about your bookings. You're thinking about the week. You're thinking, have I ordered tox for next week? Have I, you know, all the things, or you're getting, you know, especially I think with social media is like we're constantly, patients are messaging us from all different angles. So, you know, yes, we might be responding to DMs at 9 o'clock at night, you know. Yeah.
And now I'm trying to be really good and not respond until the next morning.
And it's great since I'm Lucy.
Yeah, but I'm also worried that, you know, it might be a complication.
Exactly. So you do need to be, you need to set those boundaries. Like, and I have them now if it's like a non-urgent thing, I'll look at it, but I'll be like, that can wait. Lucy can deal with that tomorrow. Obviously, if it's an urgent thing, I'm dealing with it. And something Lucy's been really good, like, because our clinic phone is a mobile, which is great because I can take it with me. And some days, especially if we haven't, you know, done filler or something like that, she'll actually say, how about tonight? This phone's a landline. So it stays at the clinic. And anything else we can just deal with tomorrow. You know, and that's been actually so refreshing. And then I can just go home and focus on my daughter and get a good sleep, and you know, and everything else can wait till tomorrow unless it's, you know, obviously a, you know, complication or something like that. But that's been really refreshing, is trying to just switch off and set those boundaries.
And I always feel guilty trying to separate myself from being a business owner and being a mum. Like, there are times that I'd be at home with my son and I'm sitting next to him and I'm responding to DMs.
I know, and I don't want her memories of me to be, you know, scrolling on my phone. So I'm trying to, especially when we have mummy daughter day, is actually just like the only time I look at my phone is when she's asleep that day. The rest of the time it's like, what do you want to do, babe? It's you and me, you know, which is, and it's, I feel a lot better about it as well. It's good. The next question was submitted by a patient. Does the frequency or quantity of anti-wrinkle injections needed increase or decrease as you age? That's quite a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of literature out there. I think from clinic experience, I do see clients that can stretch out appointments, or, you know, they might not need as much as they have previously because they started early. They were really good. They were coming every 3 to 4 months and being consistent. So there are times that they haven't, you know, had movement come back. So sometimes I will decrease their dose, but generally I find that after a couple of weeks they're not happy. So we go back to their original dose.
But it's sometimes nice to try, and then they go, oh, actually I do need that. Or, but I'd say everyone is different, isn't it? And I've got some patients, you know, as they are aging, we're reducing the dose. Some people we're increasing it. And I guess it comes down to the individual. It comes down to what else they're doing in your clinic. There's so many
external factors.
Medications, lifestyle factors, all of those things. But I second that with the consistency, especially if they've started that little bit younger, when they first start to see those signs of aging and they've been really consistent. We will get to that point where it's like, they're like, oh, I'm due, but I think I could stretch it out. And I'm like, I absolutely agree. And that's nice to be able to do that over time.
So I'm a big believer that if you start earlier, your results will be much greater. You won't need to spend as much. And you know, the results are much more attainable. So
definitely.
Don't wait till you're in your 50s and you've had a line there for 10 years. Expecting me to be a magician.
And they want a forehead like Lucy out here who's 22, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
I always have to tell people, look, I am restricted by what I can achieve, but I will do my best considering the circumstances. So I always try to bring them back to, you know, earth and
what's realistic. So we can soften it. But that's why I definitely, I suppose if those sort of younger patients are listening, is, you know, around that, I find around that kind of late 20s, early 30s when they sit on the bed and they say, I've just noticed, at the end of the day, my makeup settles into the lines. I'm like, this is the perfect, just starting. This is when we want to start. And we'll get those smooth. You'll get that nice shiny forehead. You'll get that really smooth result. And then, you'll literally, if you keep it up, you'll prevent.
And they're usually the most happiest clients.
Yeah. And you can get them the smooth. You can get them the brow lift. You can get,
and you feel amazing as an injector.
You're like, oh, great. And then, you do the follow-up. They're like, yeah, everything's great. Don't get review. But it is the ones that you said, do wait, and they've got, that natural hooding. They've got the deep lines there. It is challenging, because you want to get them the good result. You don't want to drop their brow. You want to get, longevity and meet those expectations. So, prevention is better. Will be better in the long run. Hope you're enjoying this podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by the Fit Injector Clinic mentoring program, business mentoring for cosmetic nurse injectors. If you are a registered nurse who wants to become a cosmetic injector or an existing cosmetic injector who wants to start their own business or scale up your existing business, I have just launched an online version of my mentoring program with video modules for you to work through in your own time, downloadable information for you to keep, and a strategy call once you've completed that with me for 30 minutes to answer any questions that you have about starting or scaling up your business. If you want to get started, email me at admin@thefitinjector.com.au. Now, number 3 isn't a question, but it was submitted with one of my sort of newer patients who started seeing me a few months ago. And she said, I just want to send my appreciation for the progress on my skin. And I wanted to finish on this because it is such a positive. Obviously, we've talked about the not so aesthetic side, but I want to say that this is the majority of my patients, and this is why I do what I do and I love what I do. And without, disclosing anything about this patient, but she definitely came to me with, a skin condition that she tried lots of things for. Nothing hadn't really helped. And the main thing is yes, I'm getting her results and it's incredible and she loves it, but it's what I'm seeing in her confidence. Every time she walks through the door, she is just elevating in this confidence. The best feeling? And then some of her friends come to me as well and they're all like, oh my God, her skin, but her confidence. Yeah. And it's that is why I do what I do. Yeah. And that's the kind of patient.
That's marketing you can't buy.
I know. And I'm like, and now all her friends want skin treatment. So I'm like, and that just makes it for me. So I think that's a really nice positive to finish on, and I feel like you'll feel the same about majority of your patients.
Majority of my clients are amazing.
Yeah,
they're like family.
I know, right? And they know about you, and you know about them, and you know where they go to on holidays every Christmas.
Yeah, they ask how big your kid is and what milestone they've reached.
How old is he now, and is he sleeping, and all the things, and it just makes it so special, isn't it? And you feel like your 30-minute anti-wrinkle appointment, 29 minutes is talking to them about what's been happening, and then you're like, oh, should we inject? The last minute, you put their tox in, but and that's what makes it really special, doesn't it?
It's so worth it.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do anything else.
No, not now.
No, there's no going back.
No, we're in this.
We're too far in this.
Way too invested.
I think I've got a question for you.
Oh,
as a mum,
yes.
So how do you find time for yourself? Especially staying active since you are the Fit Injector. Something I'm struggling with at the moment, getting back to, pre-baby weight. Yeah. How do you find time between, owning a business?
It's a lot, isn't it? Look, some days I feel like I've got it all together, and other days it's 8 a.m. and I say to Zach, I'm like, the ball's dropped and I don't think I'm going to pick it up today. Yeah. I think every day though, it does get easier. Yeah. And I think as myself and my husband and our little one, we all kind of get to know each other that little bit better, and our routines get better. And I think we are in a really good routine at the moment. She goes to daycare 3 days a week. We've got a mummy-daughter day. We've got a daddy-daughter day. Nice. And everyone's kind of got their little routine. Definitely setting boundaries helps. Having Lucy has taken a huge workload off me. And just definitely utilizing nap time, really setting those boundaries around when I get home, it's work is done, and I try and not sort of pick up the phone or the laptop when I get home, and trying to protect that time on the weekends as well. Definitely getting to the gym has not been great for me this year. I probably need to rebrand the Not So Fit Injector. I definitely need to prioritize that a little bit more. So that's like my next year goal is to
that
try
a New Year's resolution?
I do. I never set
New Year's resolution.
I never set New Year's resolutions, but I think mine needs to be to get to the gym at least twice a week. Would be great. But I definitely do, feel a lot better if I go. I try and utilize nap times, or even I've actually tapped into like going close to the clinic and even popping out. If I've got a gap in the day or something, do try and pop out and just have that bit of time to switch off a little bit. So have I found the balance? No. Maybe ask me again next year. But things definitely get easier, I think. And kids grow so quickly, and I hate that she's growing so quickly, but it is getting easier because she's understanding a lot more and we can communicate with her a lot more, which is a lot.
Do you think she understands?
She
what
understands
you do
understands this?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
this is your shop.
I think she does love coming in. She knows that there's a chocolate bowl. Yeah. She says hi to Lucy. She knows there's a snack drawer. So I think she appreciates those things. And she's just sort of started coming in the rooms and sort of like, what happens around here?
I love pink.
Loves pink. But she's definitely at that age where she's starting to show interest in like makeup and hair.
Yeah.
And like even this morning I had my makeup out ready and she's like picking up things and like she's going like this. And then like she picked up the eyelash curler and like went like that. But I've never actually like sat her down and like gone through a makeup routine.
She's just seen you do it.
She's just been observing me and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she wants to hold like, a brush and a lipstick and walk around and put makeup on daddy and, and so, I think she is starting to show, interest and maybe understanding what we do. But, it'll be interesting when she's 16 and going, Mum, can I have lip filler when I'm 18? And I'm like, that'll be an interesting I know.
I'm lucky that I have a son.
I know. So you don't even have to go there. But, when she's like, oh, can I have the – oh, gosh, that'll be interesting. But, look, have I found the balance? I don't know. Yeah. Have you?
Look, I'm learning not to be so harsh on myself. Yeah. Every day is a new day.
Yeah. And you're doing your best.
Yeah. But definitely I'm looking to invest in myself again and find myself outside of being a mom and a business owner. So hopefully 2024 could be my year.
Definitely.
It is getting easier, like you mentioned, and we are looking at daycare. So hopefully that will take a huge burden.
It's really helpful.
But I'll let you know if I
have any groundbreaking, changes. I'll let you know.
Maybe we have to open up a clinic with a creation side of it or something.
No, that would be so helpful. Or have a day because there's a lot of us that are mums now. Yeah. A day where we meet at a clinic to treat each other, right? Because I don't know about you, I never get treatment done.
Struggle.
And then we could get a babysitter. Yeah. And they could look after all the kids for us.
That would be excellent.
Because I'm like, don't get too close. I really need some treatment. My pigment's really bad at the moment.
No, it's not. You look amazing, as always.
Oh, thanks. So do you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 15 of this video podcast series. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. A huge thank you to Etta from the Luxe Nurse for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
That was fun.
It was so much. My first podcast done and dusted.
Maybe a part 2 next year.
Oh, we'll see.
When we've both found the balance, right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks. Bye.